Welcome to the Korea Pro podcast. I'm your host, Chungmin Kim, the editorial director of Korea Pro.
And I'm John Lee, the editor of Korea Pro.
Join us for a weekly 15-minute conversation as we dive into the most pressing stories shaping South Korea and dissect the most complicated ones for you.
From politics to culture, technology to society, we've got you covered. So stay ahead of the curve and never be sidelined again.
So get ready for a fresh perspective on South Korea's news. This is the Korea Pro podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Korea Pro podcast. It is Thursday, May 30th, about 2 p.m. when we're recording this. And we have got a lot of things to discuss. Now, as you can see, or in your case, if you're listening, Chungmin is not here today. And so, in her place, we have our
Lina.
excellent news trainee,
Hello.
Lina. Welcome back
Glad
to the program.
To be here.
All right. So let's dive right in. Okay, domestically, South Korean politics is, well, there's never a quiet day.
Yeah.
Just 2 days ago, the National Assembly tried to override President Yoon's veto for a special prosecutor to look into the death of a South Korean Marine that occurred last year. Mm-hmm. Now, the president vetoed it, but the National Assembly, especially led by the Democratic Party, thought they could override the presidential veto. Turns out that they did not have the votes to do so. Yes. But that was 2 days ago. Today, now there's a whole new issue going on. It was discovered, it was reported by local media outlets that there had been several phone calls between the president and the former defense minister while the defense minister Lee Jong-suk was under investigation about his potential role in trying to manipulate the investigation. But now apparently there were about a total of 18 minutes of a phone call, a series
across
of phone
three
calls.
phone calls, right?
Across three phone calls between the president and the defense minister. And now, just today, on Thursday, the 22nd National Assembly just began its first day. First day, and they're going to try to bring this back. And so, Lina, you've also been observing the news, you've been monitoring it. What has been your immediate perceptions of what's been going on?
Well, my immediate thought was that, wow, there's a lot of things going on because today is just only the first day. But I'm thinking that, is it just repetition of the 21st National Assembly?
Well, maybe, but I'm not so sure if it's going to be the same repetition because, sure, the first time around, the Democratic Party didn't have the votes, but now we've got the smoking gun, this phone call. Yeah. This doesn't look good at all. Yeah. Now, sure, the defense minister is now saying that the phone call did not have any issues given by did not have any orders given by the presidents to manipulate this investigation, but there were 18 minutes of phone calls.
Yeah, and that's an awfully long time. And
the defense minister at the time of the initial probe said that there was no conversation with the presidential office, but 18 minutes.
Yeah,
it's
so
on the
something
record
is
now.
not right. And then, and then whatever the PPP is pursuing, it seems like that the President Yoon is really directly involved in this case as well.
Well, we don't know if he's directly involved yet.
Yeah.
Right now, there's still allegations, but where there's smoke, there's usually fire, right?
It doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good for the PPP, and this will be an ongoing thing. As I just said, the National Assembly, the 22nd National Assembly, just started its 4-year term today. They are going to want to make their mark, and this will be an ongoing thing, and we will continue to monitor this as we go on.
Yeah, that's right. And now in another issue, Seoul Queer Culture Festival, a major annual LGBTQ festival, is being held this Saturday in Seoul.
Now, where are they holding it this time around?
Now it's different. They are holding it in Uljiro.
And where did they initially plan to hold it?
Seoul Plaza.
Okay, so I'm sure anyone who's been paying attention knows why, but can you explain why the location had to change?
Last year, it was the same thing. The festival couldn't use Seoul Plaza because the city approved a youth concert by the Christian Television System Culture Foundation.
The youth culture, or whatever it was.
Culture. And then they decided that it was child-friendly, of course. And then this year, again, another Christian group applied to use Seoul Plaza on the same day this year as well.
Such a coincidence that they seem to keep picking the same days all the time.
Right.
So, okay, where does this leave us? With all of these different events that are always coincidentally planned to be held at the same location as the Seoul Queer Festival every year. What does that really say about the South Korean government's relationship with, minorities in this country?
Yeah, so because of a repetitive rejection, now the organizers of the festival are accusing Seoul City of monopolizing public space to prevent their event from happening, and just basically kind of stifling their social diversity, I would say. Also, denial of other public venues for public. It also doesn't leave good image to people.
No, really? It doesn't leave a good image? I thought things were fantastic.
Yeah, and so this suggests how the visibility of LGBTQ community in Seoul and in South Korea, they are limited by
Okay,
the
but
government.
hold on. Sure, they've been moving their locations to other places so that they will not overlap with these other coincidental events that are taking place. But I'm sure that that's not the only thing they're doing, right? What else is the LGBTQ community trying to do to counter all of these different kinds of obstructions that the Seoul City government has been putting in front of them?
So some of the things that they have been doing is they are holding online festival this time around instead of just being offline. So that really
kind of defeats the purpose of it all, doesn't it? They're just staying home. I thought that the Queer Festival was about trying to, make it known to the public that, we're here. We're here to stay.
Yeah, but they're holding offline and online. But I mean, the real problem, though, is really that there's approval of alternative, conservative Christian groups, rather, in place of them. And I think that is, contributing a strong influence over people's perception of such communities in South Korea. And I'm thinking that South Korean government is shaping people's perception towards these concepts and of their acceptance of LGBTQ. Let's just say that South Korea wants to hold a global event in Seoul, and even if it's not LGBTQ plus, they have to accept all kinds of people. But now let's say that it's global LGBTQ event. Would Seoul take the same stance and accept and then let this festival be held in Seoul as well?
It's also not really all that good of a look because when the Taiwanese president, the outgoing president, left, she had a drag show as part of her, farewell party. And in places like Japan, they're also seriously discussing gay rights issues. South Korea seems to be the, quote-unquote democratic country in East Asia that is holding things back. So what does that really say about South Korea's relations with, its image and its relations with other countries and the way that it's treating its minorities? As a young person yourself, who, you grew up in Canada, right? And so looking at it from a Canadian perspective and looking at what's going on, what is your personal take on this?
Well, I think right now, honestly, South Korea is not looking good in terms of right to expression in an international level.
Or on any level, really.
Yeah, any level, really. And if a group's right to a public space is rejected, I kind of take that as rejection to right to expression as well. So if government is blocking this, then I think that it is the government at its fault.
All right. And regarding this same topic, our fearless leader, Chad O'Carroll, has been writing about South Korea's democratic backslide. And I'm not quite sure when we'll be publishing that, but as soon as we do, you'll be the first to know. But now we have to move on to the next topic. Now, I wrote about this just yesterday. And essentially what it comes down to is South Korea's failure to pass a law that would have allowed South Korea to help its nuclear power plant store these high radioactive nuclear waste material. Now, what happened was that this law was supposed to be discussed within the National Assembly. There were supposedly a lot of agreements within between the political parties that this law is important. But because so much of South Korean domestic politics is right now overshadowed by this Corporal Chae Sang-byung case, as we were just talking about earlier when we started recording, the bill was just not mentioned, and it did not even get to the discussion part of the National Assembly. And the 21st National Assembly just, it's done, and the 22nd National Assembly is starting today, and we're not quite sure if there will be enough political capital for the political parties to get together to talk about this again, because again, the special investigations, the calls for it will keep increasing again.
Yeah, right. But if this issue doesn't get resolved soon, what are some economic repercussions?
Oh my God, where do we start? Okay, first we have to mention that about a third of South Korea's electricity, energy, comes from nuclear power plants. But these nuclear power plants, well, they produce radioactive waste. And what South Korea has been doing is that they've been storing this radioactive waste on site with these nuclear power plants. It's called wet storage pools. I'm sure you've seen these pictures of these deep swimming pool-like places where they keep these rods in it where you should not swim. Those are called the wet pools. But the thing is, these wet pools are starting to reach saturation point, which means that after a certain point, they will not be able to store any more of this nuclear waste. And the earliest date that is coming is in 2030. Now, that's just 6 years from now. And this might seem like, oh, we still have 6 years to do this. But trying to build a permanent storage facility is going to be a nightmare scenario because, imagine that the government comes to you and say, hey, Lina, we need to store this highly radioactive waste somewhere, and we're going to pick it in your neighborhood. People are not going to respond kindly to that, right? So there's public opposition. There's the Democratic Party that is highly opposed to anything to do with nuclear power. And so this is a disaster that is coming at us in slow motion now.
It's kind of like a train wreck coming.
It could lead to rolling blackouts and it will also have trade impacts.
Yeah, so with other countries, what kind of impacts would there be?
Well, the thing is, sure, when we talk about nuclear power, one of the benefits is that it doesn't release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So, it helps with the RE100 goal, trying to reduce countries' carbon footprints. But the problem is that, especially when it comes to the European Union, they're saying that, we're going to count it as a part of a sustainable energy package, but only if you have the permanent storage capacity, which South Korea doesn't have. Now, just a couple of months ago, the French government said that they were going to give out all of these subsidies for electric vehicles, but South Korean automobiles, a lot of them did not get any of those subsidies. And this is what the French government said, South Korean automobiles did not meet the carbon requirements. South Korea's energy largely depends on coal. There's also shipping. Now, the South Korean government said, oh, please don't discriminate against us. But the French government said, oh, we're not discriminating against you. We're just upholding our carbon footprint regulations.
Yeah, sure.
But, this is going to exacerbate things.
Wow.
Unlock the full Korea Pro experience by joining our community. Stay informed, stay ahead, and never miss a beat on Korean affairs that matter. Subscribe today and transform the way you understand Korea.
So moving on to the next topic. So this is from last week, but we still have to talk about it because it's a very prevalent issue.
Now, before you go on, I just want to say that I know that you co-wrote this with Juna, but this was the best one that you guys have written.
Thank you. Thank you, Juna. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jungmin. But seriously, the issue revolved around the Gyeonggi Provincial Office of Education removing over 2,500 books from school libraries.
For those of our readers and listeners and watchers who have not read your piece, why did they ban so many books from the school library?
So they banned these books because they said these books are harmful to children because they are on sex education, gender equality, and feminism.
Oh, so sex education is harmful for children. So no sex education for children. They can just learn from the internet because that's what it's for.
Right, because that is the most safe place other than school libraries and books.
Yeah, the internet, where things are always accurate and scientifically true.
We are being sarcastic, by the way.
No.
Just had to put a warning there. But yes, but turns out that some of the books that were taken down from school libraries, they're not even on sex education, feminism, or gender equality.
And I believe one of the books that you mentioned that had that did not make it into the final copy that was published was Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Right, it was. It was banned because of the word that starts with N, and that was considered harmful to children.
I'm pretty sure that the book was trying to say that using that word and, racism in general is a bad thing. But, okay, way to miss the point.
Yeah, but it's really important to take into account of the culture in previous years and still use those culture and learning to this day instead of outrightly rejecting them.
Now, okay, but I also have to ask you about the process of writing this entire piece because I found it fascinating. You guys managed to interview a bunch of people, including a very famous British author. I forget her name. Could you remind me, please?
Mary Hoffman.
Mary Hoffman,
Yeah.
okay. So how did you get in touch with Mary Hoffman?
Yeah, so Mary Hoffman is the one who wrote a book called The Great Big Book of Families.
Okay, it's a children's book,
It's
right?
a children's book. It's a children's drawing book. And I contacted her because her book was one of the books that was taken down a lot from a lot of schools.
Now, did she know that the book was taken off the libraries?
She knew, so to clarify, her book was actually taken down in American schools as well previously.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I know. But she wasn't aware that her book was also taken down in South Korea. But it seemed like that she wasn't too surprised. But what she had to clarify is that her book is not on sex education.
Now, could you explain why her book was taken down?
Right. Her book was taken down because of one single line, which said, some children have two mommies or two daddies.
And because of that one single line, the book was taken off the shelves.
Yeah.
Again, things are A-okay here in South Korea.
Yeah. And so that says a lot about how South Korea really views about like families. But then the law does say that some books should not advocate for homosexuality.
Okay, but that book doesn't seem to advocate homosexuality. It seems to be stating a fact.
Exactly. And so, there are a lot of problems. First of all, the law does need to be changed to include diversity. Secondly, they should really strengthen how books are classified and the regulations around how books can contribute to children as well. Because as Mary Hoffman has said, there are children who have two mommies and two daddies.
Okay.
So we are only stating facts here.
All right, so I also have to ask, Mary Hoffman wasn't the only person that you interviewed. You also interviewed a bunch of librarians and educators, and you also managed to interview someone from the other side of the argument who was arguing for the removal of these books. So in this entire process where you were interviewing people for this piece, what were the biggest challenges that you faced?
Yeah, so I think the main challenge that I faced was actually reaching out to the people from the opposition side because they didn't really want to talk to me in the beginning.
Oh, no, really? They didn't? Okay.
Yeah, because she was approached by so many journalists who wanted to just bring her down, and I really had to persuade her into talking to me.
Well, to be fair, her position is easy to bash, but okay, do go on.
Yes, but she gave me a few reasons, and I also explained to her that I'm just reporting what she thinks, and then she had to explain what she thinks about these issues and all that.
Now, I believe that in one of the quotes that you wrote from this lady was that she doesn't really care about what's going on in other countries, right? What was the exact quote?
So she said, what do international awards mean for the children here in South Korea?
So South Korea, international awards don't really matter anymore. News to me, I didn't get that memo.
Yeah. And other issues that I also faced was actually reaching out to other authors as well. Yeah, because there was one author I really wanted to reach out to who wrote Flower Granny, which is a book on which is like a South Korean picture, a book based on a former comfort woman.
Now, why was this so challenging?
Because it's an issue that is still ongoing in South Korea today, politically, culturally, and I don't really know the reason why the author didn't want to talk to us, but I get why she didn't want to talk to us at the same time.
All right, thanks for that, Lina. Now we're going to move on to the week ahead. Now, as we have said several times during our recording, this special investigation case that the opposition is pushing for is not going away anytime soon. With this new revelation about these phone calls between the president and the defense minister, they are going to try to push for further investigations, and things could get quite ugly. And so this is not going to be just for next week. It's going to be for several weeks ahead. But more immediately, the biggest thing that's going to happen in the foreign policy front is that we are finally going to have the Korea-Africa Summit, which is going to take place next week on Tuesday and Wednesday. So we will keep monitoring this and we will let you know. And as soon as we do, the week ahead will come into your email inboxes. So please subscribe for more.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why they matter every morning in your inboxes.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for your weekly dose of insight. And until next time, I'm Jungmin Kim.
And I'm John Lay. Stay connected, stay informed, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.